Last week I rode my motorcycle to the famous Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps to finally experience a race of the Moto Endurance World Championship in person. This was not just my first EWC race attendance, but also my first time in the beautiful Wallonia. What my experience was like and why you should stay at least one extra day if you're planning on going there, that's what I'll show you in this video. For me, the ride on my GSX 8R upgraded with all the luggage options I could get was just shy of 3 hours. Without telling the world where I live, my local racetrack is the Hockenheimring. I rode across the Autobahn and through the stunning areas of Rhineland-Palatinate, like the Palatinate Forest, the Moseltal and the Eifel. Once I took my designated exit on the Belgian highway, entering the actual Belgium, and being in this rural area, I immediately fell in love with the region. Then I followed my GPS directions and took a right turn to this road heading to seemingly nowhere except a few houses, and I saw more cows than cars or even humans for that matter. That's when I first realized that my choice of booked camping ground was spot on. Speaking of which, I rented a chalet at the Camping de la Rouge. Excuse my French. Up to 4 people can sleep in one of those, and it has everything you'd need. Like, I personally am not the biggest fan of hotels or any luxury and prefer it rather minimal. And the chalet in that place is basically the perfect option for when you want the minimalistic, close to nature camping feeling, but don't want to sleep in a tent or not have a motorhome. It's actually a really great option for motorcyclists. Though if you want to sleep in a tent or have a motorhome, this location has spots for those too. From that camping location you can easily walk to the south entrance of the racetrack. But to be fair, you gotta be a bit crazy about walking like me. So the south entrance is a 2.5 kilometer walk, but to get to the grandstand it's an additional 1.5 to 2 kilometers, depending on which kind of grandstand you want to go to. I've also read about racing events where you cannot enter through Blanchiment, then the walk to the main entrance would be like 5 kilometers at the least. Speaking of walking, I hiked a ton while I was there. The Ardennes can be quite challenging for the average office worker in that you don't just cover a lot of distance, but also a lot of elevation and dealing with frequent weather changes. This also impacted the race, but we'll get there. If you are into hiking, plan 2 extra days, because the other one will be spent in the beautiful town of Stavelot. But trust me, it's gonna be worth it. And if you want to hike, a route that I just spontaneously did and can actually recommend is walking through Rivage and then walk around the racetrack. Not just is this town, which you can also reach by foot from the camping ground, just inherently beautiful, but there's so much to discover there in a day. For example, I went through all the small side streets, ate a baguette and read a book at the beautiful pond, greeted everyone with a polite bonjour, had some good meals at the restaurants, went to the Catholic church of the town, bought a couple of beers for the night in the chalet, and the highlight for every motorsport fan, the Abbey. This historical building is being repurposed as a multi-level museum. For one, you have the historical part about the area of the Ardennes, Stavelot and Wallonia. Then there is a limited time expo. When I was there, it was Japanese art history, which is just up my alley. And the highlight is in the basement of the building, the museum of the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. There is so much to discover in the museum, for both 2-wheeled and 4-wheeled fans. Obviously it's a little more car focused, but I'm glad that motorcycles also get their spotlight there. Unfortunately the racing simulator was closed that day, but at least I saw the most beautiful car there. There's simply nothing, and I repeat, nothing, more stunning than a clean Castrol livery. And once you're done with the museum, you can spend some more money at the shop there. But now let's get into the main topic of the day, the 8 hours of Spa Motos. Before I go into my experience of the weekend, I decided to give you a quick rundown of the Endurance World Championship, its specialties, regulations, and so on. My goal is to give people that might be into racing but only know MotoGP or are not into it at all and want to get into it, a bit of an idea about what's going on track. As of 2026, the EWC is held over 4 race events per year. 2 of those are 24-hour races and the other 2 are 8-hour races. Every race is held at historic venues such as Le Mans, Spa-Francorchamps, Suzuka, Boldor, giving every event a very distinct feeling. Each team consists of 4 riders, while 3 of them are actually active riders and the 4th one is a reserve. Aside from their helmets and butt patch on their leathers, you can tell the riders apart by their reflective armband. The armband is assigned to them on the first practice session and stays with them for the rest of the weekend. In just one race, 3 categories of bikes compete at the same time. Therefore, over 40 bikes are on the track at the same time. Just for comparison, the MotoGP grid is just half the amount of bikes. The categories are Formula EWC, Superstock and Production. The Formula EWC bikes use a black number background and white headlights. Superstock bikes use a red number background and yellow lights. The Production class also uses yellow headlights but a blue number background. To keep it simple, all of these bikes are basically showroom super bikes with varying modification rules. The Production class is the closest thing that, whatever is on a dealer's showroom floor. They are not allowed any major tuning and don't use a quick refuel system. Instead, they are required to change the entire tank through a quick release system in their pit stops. The Superstock class is allowed some more performance enhancements and also a quick refuel system, however they have only one single tire supplier. Formula EWC class has the most advanced and tuned bikes, a quick refuel system, a fast tire change mechanism and open tire choice. When it comes to the pit stops, you won't see the F1 style tire change within seconds. A, because it's a motorcycle and a bit more complicated, and B, because there is a minimum required time you need to spend in your pit stop for safety reasons. It's still fast and hectic for what it is worth. There's a lot more to it that I could go into explaining, but I think that's enough information for now. The race was set for Saturday, and with the weekend ticket you could get onto the track on Friday. While the main attraction was obviously the endurance race, the Friday was also packed with lots of programs. On track there was always some sort of action in form of the Benelux Trophy, the PMR Bridgestone Cup and the qualifying sessions for the 8 hours race. But there were also additional things like a stunt show in the fan zone, which was absolutely fire. Also, there were a few presentations of the Wall of Death, which I unfortunately missed out on Friday. Additionally, there were some things on the stage as well as the pit walk. The latter I also missed out on. The reason for that were red flags during the qualifying sessions, which delayed the entire following program. The problem there was that they didn't really communicate the delayed times. Like, you have all these screens set up and can't show the delay for the rest of the program? That is one of the rare critiques that I have. Especially because all the timestamps in the fan zone didn't delay, but the track action and the pit walk did. It makes sense, but it would have been nice to have some sort of transparent communication about the updated timestamps. A crazy thing that happened on Friday was at the Kawasaki booth. They started the H2R and within seconds there were people all around it. There wasn't a single person that walked away without a huge smile and just straight up giggling or laughing. One thing that I used my Friday for was to check out all the places you could watch the race action from. Aside from the 3 main grandstands, you could also be on top of the pits or just about anywhere at the fences. It's hard to put into words how absolutely awesome some of those spots were. Thing you could do to calm down a bit was checking out the expo. It was basically a hall with historic racing leathers, some bikes from the Mark VDS teams like the Moto2 bikes from Frankie Morbidelli, Tony Arbolino, Alex Marquez and Sam Lowe's superbike. The first day of the weekend ended with a concert by a surprisingly good band. But the weather gods really didn't want anyone near the stage, so they decided to let it rain. The people were still enjoying it as they stood under the umbrellas of the food stands. Speaking of the food stands, they were solid. The one that gave out the Belgian fries had okay prices, but some of the prices were just crazy. Like 20 euros for a pizza. Guess which stand had the longer line? That concludes the first day of the weekend, and I went straight to bed that night, excited for tomorrow's main event. Since I was really tired of all the hiking the previous days, I slept a little longer than I should and missed out on my last opportunity for a pit walk. But I don't really mind missing out on it. It would have been cool, but I've been on pit walks before. And usually there's a huge crowd on the popular teams and riders, others aren't out at all, and with a few you'll actually get a chance to chat. So I'm assuming it was also the case here. I walked up the track towards the main grandstand right on time to get a seat in an area that I wanted. It was like the 5th row right in front of the podium. At 12, the pit lane opened and all the teams and riders were flooding the starting grid and getting into place. Then there were all the usual procedures like the national anthem and the pre-race parade. Where I was sitting, I didn't see anything of the parade, as it were the Mark VDS bikes from the expo doing a lap at the circuit. I only saw them right at the end when they entered the pits. And at 1 PM, the grandstands got packed and the tension rose. The riders were getting ready for the race start and then flag, riders running, bike starting. What a sight to behold. The sound in the main grandstand was just absolutely phenomenal. And for the first few laps, when all the riders were still relatively close, the noise of over 40 bikes passing by, revving up all the way, was just absolutely magical. After a while I walked away from the F1 grandstand and was baffled at the huge line at the fences on the chicane. I went into the fan zone to grab something to eat and watch a part of the race there on one of the screens. Speaking of getting up and something to eat, every time I did that, rain started settling in. Call me fat, but it started to rain quite a few times. One thing I need to state here, the endurance grandstand is highly underrated. There were some people there, but it was never packed. But view-wise, it did give you probably the most bang for your buck when it comes to just how much race action you could see, as well as having a big screen setup. And also if you brought your own bottles, you could just refill them there for free. Then I went to the most popular place, which is the Radio grandstand. And while it was great being so close to the race action of arguably the most famous spot on the track, it was low-key a bit overrated. For one, there was no screen setup there. And then the way you looked down on riders going into a blind uphill turn kind of took away some of the gnarliness of the spot. You get a way better feel for how crazy that turn is when you're standing down there at the fence and looking up at the hill. There you realize just how much trust and balls it takes to ride up there, laying the bike over to the left-hand side at this sort of speed. Then I got up to grab another snack and rain flag. I kept walking around the track and rested at some spots at the fences and then wanted to get something to eat again. 8 hours is a long ass time, okay? But I found myself looking at one of the big screens in the fan zone and simultaneously and accidentally stood in line for the last Wall of Death show. It was so worth it. Like they had a band down at the bottom and you could feel the entire building shake as they rolled around in there, and it was loud and just great. After that, I grabbed the beer, went to the F1 grandstand again for the final hour and the following podium celebration. After the 8 hours, everyone was waiting for the leading bike to pass the checkered flag, therefore ending the race. And in this case, it was the BMW of Markus Reiterberger, Michael van der Mark and Steven Odendaal. Did I really just call it a BMW? BMW. BMW Motorrad. And when everyone thought that we saw all the riders past the checkered flag, I saw people hectically standing up, cheering and looking to the right. There was a guy pushing his bike over the finish line and got the biggest crowd pop of the weekend. It doesn't matter if it's not a classified race finish, since the third team that I was rooting for crashed out early and was basically out of the fight for a victory, still finishing in 4th though. That moment, with the guy pushing the bike over the checkered flag, that moment was my personal highlight of the weekend. I've watched my recording of it a countless amount of times. After the race and the celebrations, I walked back to my chalet. Oh well, that was the plan. See, on trips like these you come across people that are there for the same reason as you. And I've met these two French guys who were at the same camping ground. They've invited me over to their chalet for a beer and we just talked bikes, racing, life and just let the night fade out. And the next morning when them and I were about to take off at the same time, we wished each other a safe ride and I made a promise.
Okay.
Next beer is on me.
So yes, I'll absolutely be coming back next year. Given the fact that the weekend tickets only cost 59 euros and kids can come in for free, the 8 hours of Spa Motos offer a lot. It's normal for race weekends of any event to be more than just a race and more some kind of a festival. But since this is an 8-hour race, I think it embodies the festival feeling a bit more. Then obviously you'll hear all sorts of languages around as this is a world championship, but it's largely going to be French. I mean, 2 of the 4 races of the world championship are in France and the third one is in a French-speaking part of a country next to France. While I don't think attending this race will transfer you from a MotoGP fan to an EWC fan, I think it can transition a curious spectator lured in by the cheap ticket price into a motorcycle racing fan. And I think that's really important. The original motorsport spirit is still there. Everything is kind of loose and only strict where it needs to be. And generally everything feels and is so open that Grand Prix racing like MotoGP or F1 can just never be due to the sheer scale of them. To roam around as freely on a MotoGP weekend as you can here in the EWC, you'll be spending like 10 times that much on ticket prices and even more in the F1. So TLDR, give it a try. Especially if you're in Central Europe and want to spend a weekend or an entire week at a beautiful place and finish it off with an overdose of engine noise and racing action. And if you're a racing fan, it's a no-brainer. Y'all know how much history is packed within the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. And by going there, you'll contribute to the atmosphere and ultimately become a part of that history. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you liked my shared experience and I hope even more that you subscribed and stick around for more.